Hello there, everyone. Since the release of Street Fighter 6, I have been live streaming a lot of it, playing Zangief, but not just any Zangief. I have been playing Zangief almost exclusively on modern controls. And you might be wondering why. That's actually for two reasons. One, I wanted to familiarize myself with the modern control scheme just in case that ended up being objectively better, competitively speaking. And secondly, I didn't see any of the pro players playing on modern controls with Zangief. And so if they're not even going to test it out, I figured, well, I should be the one to test it out to see if it's actually better in the first place, right? Obviously, once the pro players get their hands on modern Geef, if they ever mess around with it, I'm sure their opinions will be more credible than mine, considering I'm more of an intermediate. But still, as of right now, I would consider myself the foremost authority on modern Zangief because I'm pretty sure, at least from what I can find, I'm the only content creator that is playing modern Geef, right? Not saying I'm the only modern Geef player out there, but I don't really see many videos about modern Geef. So that's why I'm bringing you this video, because I would imagine that most people playing on modern controls are people playing with pad, right? Because modern controls are targeting more of a casual audience who probably don't have a separate arcade stick that they can plug into their console, right? Most newbies are going to be playing with pad. And so you don't really need a video for that because modern controls were made with pad in mind for that very reason. And so it's pretty easy to map the buttons on a pad, considering it turns the typical 6-button game into a 4-button game. And obviously you have 4 face buttons and it writes itself, right? But what if you are like me and you play on stick or hitbox or snackbox in this case, and you want to try out modern controls like myself? It might be a little bit less intuitive, right? Because, for example, there is an auto button in modern controls that you need to hold down, which modifies some of your other buttons. And on a pad, for example, you can just hold down a trigger, right? That's the intended way to use auto, because by default, the auto button is mapped to one of the triggers. And then when you're holding down auto, you're able to press the other face buttons to do some of your other moves. So how would you do that on stick or hitbox? Let me show you. And if you're not familiar with hitbox or snackbox, that just means it is a arcade stick, but without an actual joystick, right? So these buttons here, these 4 buttons here, the ones I'm touching right now, are the movement buttons. So ignore those because you can't actually remap movement, right? Obviously, you could move around the keys, like the actual hardware of your device. But in terms of remapping in a game, you can't change these. So if you're confused about all the buttons right now, and you're just used to looking at normal arcade sticks, ignore the buttons I'm covering up. Just the buttons you see right here are the ones that I will be remapping, obviously. Because this is left, this is down, this is right, that's up. Okay, so firstly, it turns the game into a 4-button game, right? Modern controls, that is. So I have this as light, this as medium, this is heavy. So those are your main attack buttons, because when I play, I typically keep my hand hovering over the buttons. I know some players, a lot of professional players, they keep their hand really high away from the buttons, so that way they don't ever accidentally get any missed inputs or accidental inputs, right? So that way whenever they press something, they do it very deliberately by moving their hand down. I missed the button the first try. See, you can tell I don't normally do it like this. They'll do it like this, so that way they don't ever accidentally get the button, an accidental button input. But for me, I don't want to add any extra travel time by doing that. And so if you subscribe to my school of thought, you keep your hands over the controller at all times, right? Very close to the buttons. I kind of rest my hands on the stick like this. And so your fingers would naturally line up here, right? And because light, medium, and heavy are going to be the buttons that you press most often, I want them to be the closest to my fingers, right? So I use my index finger for light, middle finger for medium, and ring finger for heavy. Although sometimes I'll use my middle finger for heavy if I move my fingers over. Now that I'm mentioning it out loud, I actually don't know what I do more often for heavy. I think I most often use my middle finger because I don't really do it consciously, right? I just do it without thinking. And so that's simple enough. And for the special button, the dedicated special button for the 1-button specials with modern Zangief, it is here. So if I normally keep my index finger here on the light, I only have to move it a tiny little bit to do the one-button specials. Although with modern Zangief, you actually aren't going to be doing the one-button SPDs very often. This is something I learned pretty quickly playing modern Zangief. The one-button SPD is actually not that useful because, as you can see, the one-button SPD is synonymous with the range of the heavy SPD, as in an SPD if you were to do it with the heavy button, right? So if you want to actually play modern Zangief with serious intent, like myself, if you're actually trying to play modern Zangief to test the competitive nature of it, the competitive viability, then I recommend you actually just manually do SPDs most of the time because, as you can see right here, manual SPD or automatic SPD will whiff, right? One-button SPD whiffs here. But if you do medium, you get more range, and with light, the range is even bigger. And so you're going to have to be doing manual 360 inputs if you're playing modern Zangief, because otherwise just being limited to this throw range is pretty bad. But also it's not that bad because literally almost every single instance in which I find myself in a situation in which I would want to do an SPD, I actually have time to buffer it. What's more important about playing modern Zangief, the actual main benefits of playing modern Zangief that I've found is the one-button air SPD, which is called Borscht Dynamite. It's a different move. It's called Borscht Dynamite, but if I say air SPD, more people will know what I'm talking about. So you can do 360 in the air, right? But a lot of times you're not going to actually be buffering the motion in the air, and someone will just jump at you and surprise you. And so in a lot of scrambly situations, having the one-button air SPD or Borscht Dynamite is very valuable. And secondly, the other main reason to play Zangief on modern controls is actually the one-button anti-air super, the level 1, this. And I map the... Well, I say super button. Super is actually a macro because on modern controls, super is SP plus heavy, but doing this would be kind of awkward. Or, yeah, doing this would be super awkward, right? Because this is SP and this is heavy. Having to spread your fingers like that would be crazy. And, of course, one of the main reasons to play modern controls is to be able to react to things super fast. And so you wouldn't want to ever mess up one of those lightning fast reactions by accidentally pressing a button too early like that, right? Like if you were to accidentally press one a little bit too early before the other one. So I would recommend making a macro for super, which I have right here. And as you can see, the level 1 super is an anti-air super. And the reason why this is so significant on modern controls is because this is, in my opinion, unless you just have godlike reaction speed, this is the only way to make the move, the level 1 super, viable against jumping opponents if you want to actually react to their jump and anti-air them with this. Because the hitbox of this is not too great, and the angle isn't great either, coupled with the weird hitbox size. And so it just doesn't merit, with how lackluster the hitbox and the angle is, it doesn't merit the time it takes to buffer the quarter circle forward. If you're just ready for it, and you want to manually input it, you can do it pretty fast, right? But at least for me, I can't do the double fireball motion that fast unless I am just looking out for a jump and super ready for it, right? So I've been watching a lot of Snake Eyes and Itazan lately. They've been playing classic controls, obviously, like I've alluded to earlier. But whenever they use this move, because they can only do it with the manual input, I've only ever seen them use the move outside of combos as a hard read. But with modern controls, it actually allows you to use it on reaction, which can keep people from jumping out of the corner, which is huge in this game because the corner is so scary in this game, right? So anyways, that's all to say. I have the super button, which is actually the SP plus heavy macro right here. Specifically for this, you might think this is a weird spot, but whenever I map buttons for fighting games, I typically have the 3 main attacks here, like you've seen, right? And then I have something else super important right here where my thumb would naturally rest, which I haven't gotten to yet. And so if my thumb is normally right here, it's actually pretty easy to press this because all I have to do is curl my thumb a little bit and then push down. So if I were playing in neutral and I see them jump, I would curl my thumb like this, like that, and just press it that way. So it's not too hard to reach, right? So The top 4 and the bottom 2 middle, and I would even say actually these 3 on the bottom are all pretty easy to hit because my thumb rests here, which means I only have to move over 1 space for this or that. And of course, my fingers can hit all of the topmost right 3, and my index finger would only have to move over a little bit for the 1 button special. And so you might be wondering, what do I have here? Well, it's Drive Impact, because Drive Impact is pretty hard to react to in some situations. Obviously, by itself, raw in a vacuum, it's very easy to react to, but the mental stack in this game is pretty high. So you definitely want to minimize the time it takes for you to react to drive impacts with your own. And that's precisely why I have it right where my thumb rests, so I can react as fast as possible. Because even if I had to just travel my finger a little bit, that could potentially be the difference between winning and losing a round. And so right here, next to drive impact, is actually what I was talking about at the beginning of the video, and that's the auto button. So this is kind of the elephant in the room. Maybe I should have talked about this one first, but I wanted to just go over the basic buttons first. But anyways, the auto button is what is mapped by default to a trigger if you're playing on pad. And that's because, like I said, you can hold it down and then it modifies your face buttons. So you might be wondering, how do you do this on stick? Well, that's why I put it on a button that I can easily hold with my thumb. This actually wasn't too much of a learning curve for me because I don't play a lot of Gundam Versus, but I have played some Gundam Versus. I love that game. Shout out if you know that game. But in Gundam Versus, there are a lot of negative edge moves. And so if you're playing that with an arcade stick, you have to be moving around and doing things while holding down a button. So you want to be keeping a button held if you want to keep a negative edge move ready, but while holding down one button, you'll have to be pressing other buttons, right? So you might be pressing one of these buttons while holding down another button while playing Gundam Versus. So I was kind of already accustomed to that, but other people might not be because I know Gundam Versus isn't that popular in the West. So I would recommend putting the auto button on a spot that you can reach pretty comfortably with your thumb, because with this being the auto button, me holding it right here, I can press almost any of the other buttons, right, with the rest of my fingers. But specifically, the buttons that get modified from holding auto are your light, medium, and heavy. And look at that, I can still just as easily hit light, medium, and heavy with my other fingers right here. Since this is light, that's medium, and this is heavy. The weird thing about modern Zangief, though, is that the auto button actually doesn't afford you many more moves, because with some characters, holding down the auto button will give you a new move or a different move on all of your buttons, right? So you'll notice auto medium is this, but that's actually his crouching medium. So that doesn't really do anything because it's way more intuitive to just do crouch plus medium if you want to do that move. And auto heavy is headbutt, but you can actually just input headbutt like a normal command normal with modern because it's forward plus heavy, see? Same thing. So really, the only move you're going to be using with the auto button right here is light, which is this kick right here. This is his light kick, I'm pretty sure. Haven't played Classic Zangief in so long, I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure this is his light kick, standing light kick. And so this is the one move that's locked behind auto. And this actually is a pretty useful move. If you watch my gameplay, I actually don't use it that often, even though I should be using it more. It's just because it does seem a little weirdly laborious to do such a simple move, right? With this kind of control scheme, because having to hold down having to hold down one button and press another button, like I said, it seems kind of weirdly laborious for such a simple button, just a light kick, right? But a way to think about it that might help you is that instead of thinking about it in a way of having to hold the button to press another button, literally just press the buttons almost at the same time, right? Just do it like that. Just pretend you're having to press both buttons at the same time, but of course, don't accidentally press light before auto, because then you'll just get standing light. So pretty much treat it as if you're pressing both buttons at the same time, but just make sure you get down the muscle memory of pressing the auto with your thumb right before pressing light. And at least for me, conceptualizing it that way makes it a lot easier to just suddenly do if you want to throw it out there. Because having to think, oh, hold down this first, then press this, it just creates a little bit of mental lag, and then the move comes out a little slower than if you were to just press light kick playing classic. So I would actually say that's the only real downside of playing modern controls on a stick or a hitbox. And this might even be more so with other characters, because like I said, on other characters, you would be wanting to do auto medium, auto heavy, but maybe with other characters, if they have a bunch of useful things with light, medium, and heavy auto versions, then you'll be doing it a lot more, and then maybe you'll just be super used to it. But with Zangief, because this is literally the only auto move you need to do, it just seems so weird that this one specific move in particular is the thing that requires you to press 2 buttons, right? Speaking of the auto button, holding down auto and pressing SP is actually how you get your EX or OD moves in this game. As you can see, holding down auto and pressing SP will give you the 1-button EX SPD. And something convenient I forgot to mention about the special button being mapped right here, if you're playing on Leverless. If you're playing on a regular stick, this isn't really as relevant for you, but if you're playing on Leverless like myself, the up button being right here, if you often press the up button with your right thumb, like so, then you'll be able to very quickly hit the air SPD if you need to do it in a pinch, right? And so an additional benefit of having the auto button right here is that you can also very quickly do the EX air SPD in a pinch as well, in multiple ways. You can actually just curl your index finger a little bit, and then you have all 3 fingers lined up. So then you can do it quickly like that. Whoops. There's a little bit of skill involved because you have to make sure you hit up first and then auto and then SPD, because like I said, you need to be holding down auto while pressing SP. You can't press SP first. But you can do it very quickly that way. And even if you use your left thumb to press up, you can still use the same 2 fingers from your right hand to do the EX air SPD that way. So that's a convenient thing about having the up button lined up with both special and auto. Something else about the EX moves, by the way, with modern Zangief, the modern way to do Lariat is down plus SP. And to EX that, you would have to hold down, hold auto, and press SP. But literally, there's no point in doing this. Don't ever do it this way, because Lariat is already pretty much a 1-button move, right? Because in classic controls, Lariat is, in this game, 2 punches. Or, okay, so normally it would be 2 punches in classic, but in modern, it's actually medium plus heavy. So I originally thought he just couldn't do it manually with modern, because I was trying to hit light and medium and it wasn't working. But with modern, to do regular Lariat with the normal damage, it's actually medium plus heavy. And we have those right here, remember? So literally, this is just as easy, if not easier, than holding down plus SP, right? Because sometimes you might not want to hold down for a microsecond before pressing something. It's way more easy and intuitive to just instantly press medium and heavy that way, right? And in this game, since he has EX Lariat, to make that an EX, you would press all 3 buttons. And so this is so much easier and faster than doing this. Plus, this gives you full damage. So what have I said so far? Special, light, medium, heavy, auto, drive impact, super. Oh yeah, that leaves the last button. And you'll know what that is just by process of elimination. That's the parry, because in modern controls, parry is an actual dedicated button. It's not a macro. So I could definitely see an argument for why someone would maybe want to make parry closer to your thumb, because a lot of times you need to react to something quickly with parry. This is definitely the hardest to reach button for me. Whenever I want to parry, I usually just move my thumb in a similar way when I want to reach the super, but I just have to reach a bit further, right? So I curl my thumb like this, but then move my hand a little bit to reach parry. It's actually not that bad. Most of the time when you're doing parry, it's against fireballs, and fireballs are pretty reactable, right? So it's actually not as important to hit parry quickly as it is to hit DI quickly. But I could definitely see the case of maybe swapping auto and parry, right? So then you can hit, you can hold parry that way. But then maybe if you have auto here, if you want to still be able to do auto light, maybe you'd want to swap the light and heavy buttons to have light here and auto here, because then you could press both of the buttons at the same time like that. But I like having my light, medium, and heavy in sequential order from the least amount of strength on this side to the heaviest on the right side. Unless I'm playing Potemkin and Guilty Gear, but that's a different discussion. But typically I like having light, medium, heavy that way. So again, just to reiterate, special, light, medium, heavy, auto, drive impact, super, and parry right here. So anyways, thanks for watching, everyone. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments, and also let me know if you found this video helpful, because I thought about making this video way shorter of just saying what my buttons are and where and leaving it at that, but I assumed that people watching this type of video might want to hear the reasoning behind each thing and the theory behind it. So let me know if you liked it, and I will see you all later, and bye for now.